Hello, my name is Matthew Thomas. I'm a journalist for TheThings, and I'm here with the Survivor legend, Jerri Manthey. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, right off the hop, I have to ask you about Survivor 50. Now, obviously, I know you've had some public videos about it and all that kind of thing, but now that some time has passed, I was curious if there's anybody on the season that you're like rooting for that you would love to see win.
I don't think I'm watching it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
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 I mean, but I do secretly want Coach to do really well because we're friends, and I had the chance to talk to him before he left. So I hope he does well. I hope he gets out of it what he wanted to get out of it. But other than that, I don't really think I'm gonna watch. I think I'm
Yeah.
done.
Is it like just too painful for you after the whole rigmarole?
I just don't care anymore. I had some time to process and work through my initial disappointment and some feelings of anger and betrayal. And I'm on the other side of that now, and I just don't care. Honestly, I really don't.
I mean, that sounds pretty healthy at least.
At least that's today's theory.
And do you mind if I ask you still about like how you would expect some of the players to do?
Um, I I guess if you want to, I like I said, I really haven't put much thought into it. I've heard some chatter amongst people who weren't on it, in terms of people reaching out trying to create alliances before they got out there. I know
Yeah.
that Colby called me multiple times trying to convince me that I needed him in order to get through the series, which I thought was hilarious. And Colby, if you're listening, you know what? Jump in the lake, dude. I don't need you. I never did.
Yeah, I mean, you were stuck with them all three times, right?
Well, I kind of feel like the last time I played with them, we got to a different place in our relationship, um, where I can see very clearly what he was doing, basically just trying to use me to get further in the game, which is fine. That's what we're all out there for. But I didn't ever look into it more than it was.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that he had any intention of creating a friendship that was gonna last our lifetime or anything, and so, I just didn't put much more thought into it, so for him to reach out to me before 50
Yeah.
and call me multiple times, basically trying to make convince me that I needed him in order to get further in the game
Yeah.
was quite quite frankly, a little infuriating and condescending and right right on track with the way he's always been. So over the course of the time that I've known him, he has not changed a single bit, whereas I have evolved and I am in a different place. Um, it's a strange thing. Like I've had this conversation a lot lately that Survivor it creates an environment where people who might otherwise be able to be very close friends
Yeah.
will never truly be able to be good friends because they're always thinking that they might end up playing together again. So there's this level of censorship that happens amongst people in the real world
Yeah.
because they're so concerned with whether that person likes them or not, in hopes that maybe at some point they might play a game together. And I've been victim of that over and over again. But anybody who knows me knows that I don't forge friendships with people unless I actually mean it. I could give two shits about Survivor and like my ability to play a game with somebody. Um, if I like somebody, I like them. And
Yeah.
if I want to spend time with them, I'm spending time with them because I like them as a human being, not because I might play a game with them. So that whole franchise has created a whole, 750 some people now, who every time we all get together, there's a certain level of fake
Yeah.
that I see right through. Um, and it makes me sad. because I there's a lot of lost opportunities for meaningful relationships with people who are really unique and interesting. So I think where I'm at now, because
Yeah.
of season 50 and just going, I don't give a shit anymore. I don't. Um, I think people have realized that, oh, Jerri's exactly the same. That she's always been real,
Yeah.
being real with me now. I'm not trying to play anybody in the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing that that franchise has done to a large group of people. So, I mean, I want to send that message out to everyone on from Survivors watching this. If I'm friends with you, it's because I like you. So,
Do you have very many like former Survivor players that you would like feel like are your true friends?
um, well, no, I don't have anybody in my life who I see every day, who I rely on for advice, or um, who I look to as a best friend.
Yeah.
I think if I lived closer to a couple of them, maybe. But we're all spread out
Sure.
so far. But are there groups of people that I really truly like? 100%. I
Yeah.
This last Survivor cruise that I went on was so much fun. It was a really good mix of really interesting people.
Mhm.
Um, some who I never met before, and some who I've known for years. Like Sandra and I now, I really, I have really come to enjoy her on levels I don't think I ever appreciated before.
Yeah.
Her and I are very similar. She's very direct and very honest, even more so than me, I think. Like she has no filter. And
Yeah.
I love that about her. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that I think we would be besties if there wasn't this underlying current of I've got to act a certain ways in case we end up playing this game together.
Well, so like one of the reasons why I was very, very excited to talk to you specifically, because like there's obviously lots of Survivor legends, and I like you absolutely are one, but there was like a moment in Survivor history to me that like just from my personal experience where you completely changed the way I viewed the game and to like media and the people who play on reality shows and all that. And it was with during Survivor All Stars where you were talking at the reunion about like the emotional damage that had come up between like the Lex and the Boston Rob and all that stuff. And like to be perfectly honest with you, before that, I 100% would have counted myself as one of the people who thought you were like just the worst and like you know like all like you were just frustrating all that stuff, right? And then that moment where I saw you like sticking up for people who had that real emotional impact of what they'd gone through and then had all those people boo you. And like that seeing all those people booing you in that moment like really struck me. And then like when you went to commercial and it came back and you were gone, it kind of made me like reflect on like how I thought about you because like you were like this caricature of a survivor villain in my mind, right? So like how like that moment going all that time back, like do you like reflect back on that? Like how does that make you feel thinking back to those moments and like how people treated you at that exact moment in time?
Oh, I talked to people who just recently watched that, and it's hard for people to understand like what time period that show was taking
Yeah.
place, right? Like it was a very different time in the world in the United States. And for a woman to stand up for herself and speak her mind. And also, yeah, I'm glad you noticed I was defending everyone sitting there.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's one of the bravest things I've ever done. And I'm so happy that I did that. Um, and I've always been that kind of person. Like if I feel strongly about something, I will share my opinions and my thoughts. And I don't really think about the ramifications of the ripple that might cause and who it might affect.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've been a little too open with my feelings or thoughts. But in the end, I can look myself in the mirror and be like, that, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of the fact that I stood up for myself. Um, and I think what I was saying was way ahead of its time.
Yeah, I agree.
It didn't hit the way it does now. Like people watch that now and they're like, wow, you said that way back. That was in 2004, I think, somewhere around there. Um, Yeah, I did. I was speaking up for everyone sitting there because there were so many. We were really good friends back then.
Yeah.
To the point earlier, we were very good friends because there was so few of us, and we got, you know, flown first class to events all over the place, and we're constantly being put together at events, and we were all very close. And that
Yeah.
was the first time they ever brought people back to play against each other, and we were all friends. So betraying each other was a lot more difficult than it is now.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, one of the hardest parts about bringing people back to play that game is that you have to, like, kind of push the boundaries of your friendship with someone. But I think, when you play with friends, if they're really truly your friends, you do realize at some point you have to turn on each other. Like, it is still a game for $1 million. Like, let's be
Sure.
real.
Sure.
But that was like what Boston Rob did to Lex was really bad. And they were very, very, very close. And I saw Lex, his heart was just
Yeah.
broken. Something broke in him. And I saw it. We talked about it backstage for a long time. And having people boo Lex too, I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, hell no. That was not okay. It was not okay. And, I tell people that as an actress, being in Madison Square Gardens was like a really big deal for me. Like
Yeah.
that's a historically known place for big name celebrities to appear. And here we were on this stage, and I was just so excited to be there
Yeah.
and to be treated with such disrespect. Hell no, I'm not sitting around taking that. I did not sign up for that.
Were you shocked when like you played during the Australian Outback where and All Stars like the level of vitriol you got from people?
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%, because my experience was not what people saw. My experience, my perspective of what happened on Australia was that I was proactive, I was strong, like I was with people who'd never been camping before, so I was the one who stood up and like made sure that we were doing things that were safe, and I felt like a caretaker more than any of the men on my tribe.
Mhm.
And again, that was in the year 2000. This is before hashtag me too. This is before women were allowed to be strong publicly.
Yeah.
And I, yeah, I was very shocked every week at how there was this wave of hatred. Like, I explain to people, so I I live in California.
Yeah.
The show airs 3 hours before us on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And it was happening like a wave of hate all the way across the United States that would slowly come out to me, and I would hear it. So we didn't have social media then.
Yeah.
I'd get phone calls from people going, "Oh my gosh, you might want to be with friends when you watch this episode." I'm like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" Like it was shocking. It was
Yeah.
absolutely shocking.
Did you have very many because like you said there wasn't social media back then, like did you have very like many friends like fans I should say being like brazenly angry with you when you were like making your way around the world at that time?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I've told the story of one time in LA, my cousin was visiting me, and I just bought a new house. Like I was living the, celebrity life in LA, and I'm driving down the street, and I get stuck in traffic at some point. I pull out into traffic, and somebody in a Porsche, no less, comes pulling up next to me like Mach speed, motions for me to roll the window down. I roll my window down, and they're like, "That's why everybody thinks you're a bitch," and just like peels out. And I'm like, did that did that just happen? I look over at my cousin who's from the Midwest, and she was just like, "Oh my gosh, your life is crazy. Like, what is happening?" I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, I had many encounters with people who were just awful to me.
Yeah.
Um, but I also had, even back then, I had teenage girls come up to me and be like, you're my idol. Like, You helped me get through my parents' divorce. You taught me it was okay to stand up for myself. And those are moments that somehow made it all worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, people were very vocal. It was, yeah, it's a different world.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how crazy all that would have been, and it's like it's actually really fascinating to me to hear that you did have some people who were reaching out to you, like feeling like some kind of kinship with you based on how you behaved on the show. Because again, like from what like I watched it more than once, obviously, and that show that the way you were edited on that show to look like a villain, like there's so many moments where there's like little hints where if you're paying attention, you can recognize that you're being painted in a certain way, like there's moments where, for instance, like people are in All Stars where Rupert had the whole cabin thing, which I mean that's a whole thing, but from that side, where there was like a mention where someone was saying that all the girls didn't want him to do it that way, but you're the only one showing being that way. You know, like that, there was stuff like that throughout all your editing on like were you so like when you were watching it, like how shocked were you by like the stuff that they left out?
I I mean, they leave out so much, especially back then. It was only 40 minutes of actual camera time per episode. I was really shocked at how much camera time I got actually in Australia, given the fact that there was, 16 people out there. I felt like after season episode 2, which is when I caught Kel eating beef jerky. Um, and then, to this day, I still get blamed for going through his bag. It was Tina who went through
Yeah.
his bag. Like, I'm just like, you guys, yeah. So I recently went back and watched season 2
Yeah.
with someone who'd never seen any of the Survivor shows and was like, I want to see this thing that you did. Oh my gosh, it was so triggering. Like, in this day and age, to go back and watch season 2, I was actually getting bullied.
Yeah.
I wasn't a villain at all. I was literally being bullied by everyone else. Like, I didn't do anything. What
Yeah.
did I do? I made tortillas that everyone ate and they loved it. Keith hated me for it. I took over making the rice because Keith could not make rice. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, Jerry, this is so amazing. How does that make me a villain? Because I took over making the rice.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird to go back and watch it now. And in my mind, I was being helpful and I was, being proactive and going out and looking for food when everyone else was sitting on the beach. And, you know, no one could catch fish. And I got in the canoe the next morning and caught like 12 fish. Like, how does that make me a villain?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. It's really, truly bizarre. Other than, I guess my hair looked fabulous and people were jealous.
Like when you went back for heroes versus villains, however, like the whole way you were put out there on the show was completely different to a large degree. Like because they had like people like Russell and Parvati who were like the bigger villains. All of a sudden, you were plated in such a different light. That like was that just as shocking to you to all of a sudden like obviously you weren't like painted as like the ultimate hero or whatever, but you were painted as like a full dimensional person during that season. How did that feel for you?
It felt great. I felt like there was some redemption in that for me for sure. It would have been better if I had won. And
So
I'm
close.
so close. I was
Yeah.
so close. Like, it still haunts me to this day, like how different my life would be if I had won that season and how different the culture of Survivor would have shifted if I had won that season. Um, I don't waste too much time thinking about it because
Sure.
it's the past. Um, right, there's a plane going over. But I that season I just found a different rhythm in the game. So
Yeah.
this is what I told Jeff when they talked to me about 50. He said, well, why do you want to come back? I said, Jeff, because I finally figured out how to win. I figured out how to win. And I think that struck a chord with him. And I don't think that I'm the face that they wanted to see win this season 50, which also pisses me off because I think if anybody deserves it, it would be me because of what I've been through. This is
The redemption.
right, exactly. And because I got so close to that last time and so many people rallied behind me, I feel like there's even the fans would really like to see that as well.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen you come back personally.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I was, admittedly, a little scared to come back just because as you get older, things hurt a little bit differently. But I was ready. I was mentally ready, and I didn't even think twice about it. I season 50, celebration of all 50 seasons. Of course, I'm going to be on it. Like it just seemed so matter of fact, obvious
Yeah.
that when it didn't happen, I was like, okay, so I guess that's what you guys think of me now. Um, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I find it shocking that you weren't cast because, like, I think a lot of people don't seem to realize it because it's been so long. But like, your season, like, in a lot of ways, is kind of like the ultimate season, like the Australian Outback. Like, gameplay aside, because I think there are definitely some seasons that were better gameplay wise. But like, as far as like a success, like, it was kind of the ultimate season. It's the longest. The ratings from beginning to end were just phenomenal. You like everybody on it was became a sensation at the time, and like you as the villain of that season, and also like the first female villain in Survivor history, like to me it kind of seemed like a no-brainer that they'd want you back.
Yeah, the first villain in reality TV history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense. I think I don't know. There's a whole new generation of people also who are in casting, who I don't think were old enough during that era to really fully understand the impact of that season and my part in the success of the franchise. Um, but I know, I don't question that at all. And anybody who was around, they know.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I guess I do have that redemption on my own in my personal life, but I really I was ready to win $1,000,000. In fact, I was trying to convince them to up it to 5. I said, "You bring back 50 people playing for $5,000,000 and you will reignite that franchise because right now it's dying.
Yeah.
People are bored. There's really not a lot that's interesting anymore about that franchise." And I hate saying that out loud because I know I'm a part of it,
Yeah.
but you can't you can't dial it in. You can't just make it at the same location every season with the same challenges every season.
Yeah.
It's like a factory that people are just cashing out. The producers, whoever, they're just making money. They're like, let's just keep doing it until it dies. Well, you're going to ride that horse right into the sunset
Yeah.
rather than think about it like reigniting it with like a truly epic season. Season 50 was this opportunity that was so missed.
Yeah, I agree.
It's almost like they want it to end. That's how I feel about it.
I mean, if I'm being honest, like there's definitely parts of Survivor 50 that I'm excited about. Like there's like when I think about individual cast members, I'm like, oh, it'll be interesting to see if they do this and all that kind of stuff. But like when I think about like the franchise as a whole, like I can't disagree with a lot of your sentiment there, especially when it comes to like challenges. I mean, they're so tedious now. All of them ending on the same puzzles, and like so like there's 20 minutes before, like 20 minutes of activity before that, which we only see like a tiny bit of, obviously, but it, for the most part, has very little bearing because it all comes down to the same puzzles. Every time they introduce, I'm like, oh, not again.
Yeah. And the whole mud thing just pisses me off.
Yeah.
Like that in itself makes me not want to watch because there's something very um just disrespectful about making people in that environment that's already hard enough dive into mud, scrape up their faces, their shoulders, like all these open wounds, and then have them dive into a big pile of wood chips. Like I look at that and I think, oh my God, like that's not even safe anymore. Like you get a wood chip in your eye, or just things like that. This is this is
Yeah.
probably also me getting older. I'm like, this is nonsense. Like someone's gonna get hurt. But
Yeah, I mean, Survivor players have like speaking about like the mud too. Like Survivor players have talked about how when they do go through those mud challenges where they are winning a reward, for instance, if they're gonna go and get some food or whatever, that they don't let them clean off before they eat. It's like I don't know why that's necessary.
yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's total bullshit. And that kind of stuff pisses me off because that's somebody somewhere that's just trying unnecessarily to torture people. And you don't need to do that.
Yeah, that's
That's
one
the
of the visuals.
thing. Yeah. So like even back in the day when the show first started, like we had no idea what we were doing. We had no clue. We had Richard Hatch as the person who basically laid the groundwork for
Yeah.
what an alliance looked like.
Yep.
That was my whole game plan going for season 2. Create an alliance ASAP. I judge it on people's smiles. Like, can I trust them if they have a good smile and it's genuine? I want to team up with them. We had no idea what we were doing. But there was like the challenges back then were really interesting and they
Yeah.
took a long time to build.
Yeah.
Like, I know people ask me what my favorite challenge of all time is, and I think I would have to say um, we had this giant maze
Hmm.
and we weren't blindfolded running into stuff, scraping ourselves, beating ourselves up. It was a giant maze that you could not see outside of the walls. It was so epic. Like when we showed up and we were like, wow, like we were amazed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that's missing.
Yeah.
Nobody shows up at a challenge now and goes, oh my God, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Right. It's more like, oh, this is going to suck. Like that whole mud thing. It makes me so mad because I think I know why they're doing it. So because it's only 26 days long, they need people to look as dirty as possible
Mhm.
and to completely destroy the color, fade out their colors in their clothes. So it's not like a vibrant, clean looking cast for 26 days. That's my theory.
I mean, it's a good theory.
Yeah.
And I'll be I'm of two minds of this. I have to admit. So like on the one hand, like when like they're talking about like not giving people rice and all that stuff, like I've never understood that because like on one hand, like I get that they want to have make it tough on them a little bit, so they have to kind of roll with the punches. But on the other hand, I don't think anybody's ever sat down and been like, I want to watch Survivor to see these people suffer. We want to see like the strategy and like all like the interpersonal stuff. So like for me, like give them rice every single time. I don't understand what the point of that is. But on the other hand, I have to admit, especially when you're talking about challenges, there are like some of my all-time favorite challenges are ones that I have to admit seem like they were torturous to go through. like the endurance ones and like hold like where they had to hold up the weight and like the like all that stuff. I as a fan, that a lot of that stuff is really fun to watch. But like I do agree. Like you don't need to make those even those ones unnecessarily painful, right? But yeah, I mean, I do have to admit I miss those like endurance challenges that were like because they were something different too, right?
Yeah. They were all completely unique and specific, some of them to where the season was located.
Yep.
Like again comes into play like the uniqueness in the different locations. Um, that was half the fun right there, just like learning about the culture of a place. Like, Ethan on his season in Africa went to an African village,
Yeah, that
which
was awesome.
ended up for him like creating this whole passion for helping, all these children in third world countries. Like
Yeah.
he was inspired by his experience and things like that are just missing. And somehow they packed that in to a 40-minute episode instead of these like hour and a half episodes. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like even though we had a shorter time, I feel like we still got to know people better than we do now. And they have 90 minutes.
Well,
I don't know.
it's interesting that you say that though, because like when I go back and I think about like the Australian Outback, like some of the parks where you were painted, like the moments that painted you the most as a villain, I was amazed at how much time they invested in some of these moments. Like it would be like 2 minutes straight of people complaining about how you were judging other people play like cooking rice and like it just seems like such a huge investment of time just to make you look terrible at the time. It's mind-boggling to me looking back on it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of camera time dedicated to turning me into a horrible person when there was no other side of the story
Yeah.
portrayed, right? Like I know exactly what you're talking about, where Elizabeth is just like going on and on and on about I lifted the pot of the rice, and Jerry was immediately like staring at me, but nobody talked to me
Yeah.
about that, right? Because I'll explain what happened. She came from a tribe that had a pig,
Yeah.
they had chickens,
Yeah.
they were like eating like kings over there. And we were on a tribe that had nothing but rice. And we had already gone through this whole rice situation. But
Yeah.
does that make me a bad person? No, in fact, it makes me a good person because if starving people refuse to eat the rice because it's so bad, something's got to be done. Like, we're not going to win any challenges, you know, saying, no, thank you. I don't want seconds. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We were literally, when I was making the rice, counting the grains. Like, every grain was like a little bite, it was the savoring of every single morsel. And Elizabeth had no idea. She
Yeah.
had no idea what that was like. I can't even imagine like having an entire pig to eat
Yeah.
and chickens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Look, again, like the whole thing about fried green tomatoes, like the amount of time that they invested into making you look terrible. And the other thing I find really interesting about that first season too is like I like even like your very first moment, pretty much, where you're shown on screen talking about how like you're gonna judge everything that everybody says to you through like a strategy point of view, like where you're trying to figure out who to work with, like where you're painted as a villain for be like thinking ahead like that, which is like you said, like everybody at that time was basing what they were doing off of Richard Hatch. So I guarantee you everybody else was saying probably the almost like maybe even word for word, but they wanted you to look bad. So they were trying to paint you in the same kind of picture that Richard was in, and that everybody hated him for.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. They were trying to turn me into the female Richard.
Yeah.
And um, then when I didn't win, that didn't work out for their narrative,
Yeah.
But it was also, I mean, this is the thing too. Like, people ask me all the time, like, is it scripted? Are you being told what to say? No, we're not. But this is the power of producing an episode, right? The producers all get together, have meetings, and decide what storyline to follow for each episode. Then they're sent out into the field to get very specific content that supports that narrative. So when we do our little off-camera interviews, they're asking us questions. And they always make you repeat the question. It's part of the process too.
Yep.
Um, they are looking for you to say a little tiny sound bite
Yeah.
that they can then Frankenstein together to follow this narrative. And nobody understood that yet back then. Not even those of us who were playing. We had no idea what they were doing. And I remember those little offside things like, can you say that again, but maybe word it a little bit different? Can you say that again and maybe use this person's name when you say that? Things like that.
Yeah.
So in that way, yes, we are manipulated. But yeah, it is pretty amazing when you go back and watch how much screen time I got being turned into a bad person.
Yeah.
I think that was the part that hurt me the most, was that people thought I was a bad person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. Anyone who knew me was just like, what in the hell are they doing to you?
Yeah, like after watching that moment where you were sticking up for people and got like just crapped on, going back and watching those moments now, where I remember hating you in those moments and like buying into that narrative. It's hilarious to me going back and watching those moments now, where I can see like the story that they're constructing, and like how like first off, everybody does things that will make other people angry. So you film anybody for any amount of time, you're gonna say things that are gonna piss people off. And then like I said, like taking like moments where there was a very obvious implication where you notice that it's not just you who is behind whatever is going on, that they're painting terrible, but they're only pointing out that it's you who's involved.
Yeah. It's funny that you picked up on that going back and watching it. And I felt I did the same thing. I felt prey to the edit for other people, and I would catch myself like with Lex. I remember in Africa season, I was hosting some show on E at the time. We would break down the episode, and I went into a whole rabbit hole of not liking Lex and like just like "Rah, Lex this and I can't blah, 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 blah." And then I met Lex for the first time in person after his season was over, and he was just like, Jerri. He was just so sad. He was like, Jerri, of all the people, I would have thought you would understand what I just went through. And it made me stop and go, oh my God, that's how easy we got sucked into feeling very strongly about a person. I think people are now a little bit more aware, a little bit. There's still plenty of people who just let themselves get sucked into it because they enjoy hating people.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm above that either. Like when I watch a reality show, I'm also watching it to judge people. I'm not pretending like I don't. I just in the back of my head recognize, oh, maybe this isn't fair. Like I'm like, oh, there's so much stuff I'm not saying. But when someone does a strategic move on Survivor that I don't think making any sense, I'm like, you fool. I still 100% do that. I just try to recognize it now.
Yeah. Well, that's good. We've all evolved. I'm I'm a big fan of Below Deck. It's like my favorite. I absolutely love that show so much. But I do that on there too. I'm just like, oh my God, that person is so annoying and what a slut, And then I'm like, oh man, I wonder what they're like in real life. Like, there's something fun about it while you're doing it, but then at least those of us who have evolved also look at them as human beings who are victims to a producer storyline, or a casting person's idea of who they want them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why reality TV is so big now. I mean, come on.
So the other part of that your whole journey on Survivor that I'm fascinated by is like after you were so hated that like you mentioned earlier there was somebody who was literally driving by and yelling at you. You go from that to fans voting and choosing you to be inducted into the Survivor Hall of Fame. Now obviously part of that is because people recognized you as this great villain, but the fact that like people thought highly of you enough to go on the internet and vote, and some people probably voting a lot. Like, did that feel like a big thing for you after having gone through that level of hate?
I didn't know I was in the Survivor Hall of Fame.
Like, till now? Really? That's hilarious. Yeah, you're in like the same class as Coach and Rudy. I think you're the fourth or fifth class, and there's like 20 people I believe that are in it in this show's history, and it was based on a fan vote, and you're one of like the 20 people who were voted in. So like how like knowing that after you had so many people hate you, like how does like is that wild that there was that many people who would have, because at the time there was, I believe, I mean it's been a long time, but I believe there was millions of votes and you were one of, in 1 year you were one of three people chosen to be inducted.
When was that?
It was I think it was like 2015 to 2020 or 2022 or something like that. Don't quote me on those numbers, but I think that's right.
Huh. I had no idea.
That's hilarious.
Thanks for your vote.
But like knowing that now, like obviously you just found that out, so I can't imagine you have any like deep thoughts on it. But like, does that feel like wild to you that after you had the people that angry at you, that now then there was like probably you never know, the guy who yelled at you might have voted for you.
Yeah, that's great. I'm flattered. Thanks, guys. I you know, I think I was more excited to find out that I was a gay icon.
That's awesome.
When I heard that, I was like, wow, that's a huge honor. I mean, I don't know. Those polls are always so weird. Like, I wonder sometimes if that's like the production people like trying to pump certain people so that they can bring them back or what. I always feel like those polls are very twisted.
I completely understand that. The one thing I will say is that this was not a CBS poll, at least as far as is known. It was put on by Sprint at the time, and like they announced it on CBS, so there was like some connection there, but it wasn't like the Survivor team who actually did it, as far as I know. So there, that might change how the level of legitimacy you may believe it has.
Okay. Well, that's great. That's great news. It's
So yeah, I mean, like I said before, like on Heroes versus Villains, like you had the completely different edit, and people looked at you differently, and you did have a completely different fan reaction to you at the reunion. Like, how did that feel at the time? Like going from being like hated and, as you mentioned earlier, to being recognized as a gay icon. Like that must have been. I can only imagine that must have been a trip.
It felt really great, but I definitely was so wrapped up in the fact that I didn't win that it was hard for me to appreciate it at the time.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, looking back, like people are like, "Oh, you had this great character arc," and my response is that to that is, "Well, it'd only be great if I would win," which is why I was so ready to go on 50.
Yeah.
Um, it felt really good at the time for sure. But I remember I was so disappointed in myself for not winning. That was a tough loss, that one. Um, Even though it's on a personal level, I definitely feel like I won in a lot of ways
Yeah.
because of how people suddenly liked me.
Yeah.
But I've always been the kind of person any time in my life, I don't base my self-worth on whether people like me or not. So as much as that was a great shift,
Yeah.
it didn't change how I felt about myself in any way. It just kind of fueled me to want to go back and finish what I had almost completed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been a wild ride. I mean, I can honestly say that this has been 25 years of my life. And as much as I step away from the franchise, I'm also still ingrained in it, whether I want to be or not. And I'm very grateful that people still remember me and people want to meet me and get excited still. Like it's always surprising to me that people still care.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that so much. But again, like I'm also an actress and I wish more than anything in the world that I could get that same love and admiration and respect in that field, which is
Yeah.
the I've been acting since I was 9 years old, and I have not been a part of that world now for almost a decade just because I was so wrapped up in just the negativity of the industry and um yeah, it's a tough business for sure on a personal level. I needed to get away from it. I would love more than anything to be able to figure out how to get back into it now, but I, I feel so far removed. I'm a little overwhelmed, like just with the idea. But hey, you never know what I'm gonna do. Every day is a new story. Honestly, I know that I'm gonna move at some point in the near future. I'm ready for a change. I live in Napa Valley, a very quiet existence, crafting and doing wine tours and producing events, things like that. I'm getting ready to go to Burning Man for the 23rd year, and I produce a huge camp out there that I'm so proud of. Uh, that's really my big passion project.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I keep asking, like, what am I going to do when I grow up?
I know the feeling. Trust me.
I know I feel like I'll probably feel that way until the day I die. Like, what am I going to do when I grow up
Yeah. Yeah.
with my
So,
water?
so speaking of what you're gonna do, the last question I have to ask you for like other people, and just because I'm personally curious, because I do like looking back at your Survivor Legacy, I like loved your journey on that show, and it based on everything that happened around 50, it certainly seems like your Survivor journey is over. So, do you have interest in going on any other reality shows like The Traders, Deal or No Deal Island, stuff like that?
I would love to do traders.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that would be a real interesting journey right there. I think what makes that show so interesting is to see people who end up as the traitors who are clearly in the midst of a moral dilemma of trying to figure out how to lie when that's not a naturally normal thing they do. I think that's what makes the show fascinating. Um, yeah, I would love to do that show. Um,
One of the most
you,
interesting parts of that show to me too was like when you had Parvati on there, who was somebody who people definitely perceive as being somebody who would is typically on Survivor been deceptive, and she seemed to struggle so much with being deceptive on the traders. And she talked earlier, or like later, about how like the style of deception that you have to do on the traders was so different that it was extremely challenging. So I think it would be fascinating to see you on there.
yeah, I think so too. And it would be a great opportunity for me to wear all of my Burning Man costumes too, because I love the clothes. Every time people come out in the morning for breakfast, I'm like, oh my God, what are they wearing? Yeah.
Are there any other reality shows you'd be interested in?
Um, I I was recently talking to Abby Maria
Yep.
about doing The Amazing Race together because I love traveling. And I think the two of us would be a hot mess, which would make for great TV, but I'd probably get very frustrated, which also is great TV. Um,
Yep.
I don't know, like that. I guess Deal or No Deal Island. I watched Parvati on that season. That was interesting. It's for me. The hard part is the math. All the math on that one. I get very confused by.
I think a lot of the math on that one is a little bit overblown too. A lot like there's like obviously you have to try to figure out what your the likelihood is, but so much of that is just gut, and I think the math is a little bit overblown. So I don't think you should worry too much about that.
I hate math. It literally makes my brain shut off. I'm just like, "Grr." I feel like I'm a second grade again.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else is even out there. I would never do Below Deck, even though I used to be a yacht chef. I would never do that show.
You'd never be a guest?
Oh, I'd be a guest on it, 100%. I would never, you know, be a chef on it.
No, no. That seems very high pressure.
It's that, well, that job is very high pressure. It's 24 hours a day. But I love that show. But I don't really, I used to wish they would do a Real Housewives of Napa Valley,
Mm,
but I think that town is too small. There's too many people who know each other and
mm.
don't want to talk shit about each other because after the show's over, they all got to live together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of reality TV, to be honest, but I do watch Traders. I do, and I love it.
Yeah, it's a
I think
great
it's
show.
great.
It's a great show. I think you
Yeah.
can they could have the first reality show female villain on there. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, they should. I
Yeah.
agree. I think everyone should write the producers and the casting people and tell them that.
Thank you so much for joining me. It was such a pleasure to get to talk to you today.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.